Hello, it's Melissa from Kiwi Banana, and today I wanted to try and do a Jamaican review video. Try and keep this as short as I possibly can. Just some things that I wanted to share with you. I guess like my review of being in Jamaica. We've been here for nearly a month, and I would consider that a good amount of time. Although, of course, if I lived here for years and years, I'd probably have a much better understanding of Jamaica and what it's like to live here longer term. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about is that I think Jamaica has some of the best storms. We've arrived during the rainy season and the thunder and lightning here has been absolutely amazing. Plus the rain really does rain, and this is coming from a person that's grown up as a child in a very wet part of New Zealand. And yeah, I can definitely vouch that when it rains, it can really rain here. So yeah, I mean, if you're into seeing that sort of stuff, I'd definitely recommend coming here in the rainy season. We're in the Portland parish, but I assume there are other areas around Jamaica where it really does rain. But there will be a few areas where it doesn't rain so much because there are some climates that are a bit more desert-like and less tropical. Where we are, it's a lot more tropical. The next thing I wanted to talk about was what I would call like the public taxi. So it's been really good, the use of these public taxis. We're in a very rural part of Jamaica, and there's not really like a set bus timetable or anything to get from place to place. For us to get to the nearest town, we get in a thing that they would call like a taxi here, but it's not like, I mean, yeah, you can ring up a taxi and ask them to personally drive you, but you can just sort of wave them down from the street and they charge you per person. But when you get in the car, there could already be another 5, 6 heaps of people already in the car. So they kind of like jam you all in. I don't recommend this, by the way, because this is not being very safe on the road. But that's how they mostly get round, is they get in these cars. And for us to get from where we are to the nearest town, it's about a half an hour drive. Probably a bit quicker because they do drive a lot faster than what they should. And it costs us about 200 Jamaican dollars one way each. And I'm only going to be able to sort of calculate that into New Zealand dollars because that's the currency that I've grown up and gotten used to. But 100 Jamaican dollars is like $1.10, $1.20 New Zealand. So it's really only about $2.20 each for us to go one way and then come back. And for about about half an hour drive, I'd say that's not too bad. Sometimes they'll have like vans, and we've counted up to like 26 people in a van once, especially when there's the school run, because all the little kids can kind of sit on top of each other. But yeah, that's just how they sort of get round where we are, and we found it to be quite cheap and reasonably convenient. And sometimes you will get in a taxi where they won't overload, so they will only allow for 5 people in the car. I would recommend getting the red plate ones, the ones that have the red plates though, because I've been told that the vehicles that don't have the red plate, they don't have insurance. But if you get in a vehicle that does have a red plate, then they do have insurance, and then you are covered for, you're a lot more likely, should I say, to be covered if something was to go wrong while you're in the vehicle. Moving on to the next one, vegan food. Now, of course, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll understand that I consider this quite an important thing when I travel. I have found there has been, a variety of fruits and vegetables, even though we've come in at a season, it's not really mango season. We're not in an area where there's lots and lots of fruits at the moment, just because of the season we're in, but I have managed to find quite a few fruits and vegetables, even some new fruits and vegetables that I've never tried before, and they've all been reasonably priced. Sometimes they can go up in price, and a lot of the time that is because maybe something's affected the crop, might be a tomato or something like that, could be some type of weather. They're not been able to grow them, so they might have had to import them in from overseas. But if you can try and buy local, you definitely get things at a reasonable price. And when you go to markets, you might be able to bargain them a little bit on prices. If you're buying quite a bit, you might be able to say, hey, look, they might say, oh, this is 200 each, and you might decide that you're going to get multiple amounts of them, and you might be able to get them down just for buying a bit more in bulk, I guess. Now when I eat, go out and eat food that is, made by locals, and usually locals eat it, I mean, I can get a reasonable sized meal for about 300 Jamaican dollars, and that's about $3.30, $3.60 New Zealand dollars. And if you look up JMD and what that converts to your currency, you'll see that it's not too badly priced, especially if you're coming from, a westernized, developed country, and then you're coming to a place like here. Mostly it consists of things that are, rice, beans or peas, and vegetables. So not a lot of variety. But you can go, if I was in a more populated area, I probably could go to more places where they make food for tourists. It would be more expensive, but you might get more variety of plant-based food. Next thing I want to talk about is sort of like the rural versus city town life. It's actually quite different, and I would imagine that even some parishes, sort of areas within Jamaica are slightly different as well. So we're in rural sort of Jamaica. When we go into town, we notice it's quite different. And even though the nearest town's not very big either, I would imagine, being in the city, we're going to go to Kingston actually pretty much tomorrow, so I'll be able to get more of an idea what it's like city life there. It's quite different, and I have heard things. Kingston obviously is the main city. Montego Bay and Ocho Rios, they are very busy places. A lot of tourists, especially Montego Bay and Ocho Rios, and I think there's another one called Nigel is another popular place with tourists as well. But yeah, it's very busy. It's quite hard to walk down the street and in a free flowing sort of motion and not be interrupted, and definitely a lot of hustle and bustle, which I guess kind of leads me on to the next point I wanted to talk about is hustle. And what I mean by hustle is people coming up to you and trying to sell you something, whether that be like a product or a service, or they're trying to they're basically trying to get some money from you. And I understand people need to make money, because they are definitely living in a financial situation that most people in Western society would consider to be at the lower end of the socioeconomic, grade, if you want to look at it like that. So they're trying to get some money from you, and especially if you're a white traveller, tourist, you're going to be like a target. And especially in places like Montego Bay, Nigel, I've heard Ocho Rios is probably the worst. And so you're going to get constantly bombarded with people coming up to you asking all these things. And I don't know about you, like maybe it's not a problem for you. For me, I can get quite agitated when I'm having a lot of interaction like that. Especially if you're just want to go for a walk down the street and you're having a conversation with your friend, with your partner, whatever, and you're chatting, you're like, okay, yeah, so today maybe we should do this, or like maybe we should do this, and you're just getting interrupted all the time. So being in more rural parts of Jamaica, you're going to find that happens hardly ever at all. Now this is kind of going to lead on to, because I'm a white woman, I find that this is quite relevant, and it could be relevant to other not even just irrespective of what colour you are actually, but because you are a woman and coming to Jamaica. Now some people, they might not have a problem with this. To me, it irks me a little bit, and that is that I find Jamaican men can be kind of, a lot of people would maybe even consider this to be quite sexist. And the fact that they're very much, they say things to you that you wouldn't, like back in New Zealand, I wouldn't dare get this as much as what I do here. And it's calling you things like baby, and they're very much sort of like up in your face, and they can be a little bit sort of threatening, and it all comes down to, I think a lot of the time, it's just, maybe it's the way they see women in society, but also that maybe they see like sex as an opportunity to get out of maybe whatever situation they're in. Maybe they can, if she's like an American woman, he can like try and get her to fall in love with him, and then they can, she can take him back to the States, and so I definitely found that I definitely get a lot of like remarks when I'm, even when I'm not alone, like even when I'm with my partner, they're still saying things, you know, like, oh, you're very, very sexy, very beautiful. And like some people might take that as a compliment. And for me, I think that there's a line, and a lot of them seem to cross it. And yeah, so it just makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. I'm not worried that I'm going to be, you know, there's going to be sort of any violence involved, but you know, it's not a really good feeling. And especially when my partner's like just standing there next to me, it's, you know, it's sometimes feel like maybe they're just trying to push the boundaries to see how far before he cracks, you know, because it's not a very comfortable thing for him to be watching either. Moving on from that, now moving more onto the good side, I guess. It is, you know, reasonably cheap. Like I said, 100 Jamaican dollars is like $1.10, $1.20 New Zealand. You work that out in your currency as well. A lot of things tend to be more on the cheaper side than if I was to do them in New Zealand. I do know of other countries in the world that are cheaper. However, you know, it's still at the cheapest, still going to be cheaper than a lot of westernized, developed countries that are, you know, that many people, you know, people from Germany and the States and Canada and the UK and that come visit here. It will be cheaper, highly likely. I mean, you may have to watch, because sometimes the prices will just be bumped up because they see an opportunity to, you know, they think, okay, you don't know what the price is going to be, so I'm just going to charge extra on that, and they will pay for it, you know. And some people probably will. There's been a few times where we've kind of caught them out. They're trying to charge us more, and we've said, no, actually we've been told that this is the price, you know, and they're usually pretty good to, they might apologise and be, oh, sorry. Or you might be able to bargain with them to get the price back down a little bit. So yeah. Oh, and there was another thing I wanted to talk about, and which I think is probably quite important, only because of when a lot of people think of Jamaica, they think of you know, the reggae music and Bob Marley, and they probably think of marijuana. And you know, a lot of that has been to do with the religion of Rastafarianism, and you know, their sort of beliefs and using marijuana for spiritual reasons and things like that. And you know, and sugarcane was a very, very prominent thing in Jamaica long ago when slavery was allowed. And with that, they used a lot of that sugar to make rum. So rum, alcohol in general, I guess, is quite a big part of Jamaican culture. And I think a lot of tourists that come here seem to consume a lot of alcohol. They seem to, not all of them, but they possibly consume marijuana, maybe other drugs as well. I don't know. I mean, I don't drink, I don't smoke marijuana anymore. It's not my cup of tea anymore. For me to say that I've never done that stuff would be lying. But it's, you know, it's doesn't provide me with anything that I'm wanting from that stuff. So, you know, if you're wanting to come here and drink alcohol, yeah, I guess you can. And, you know, if you're wanting to come here and consume marijuana, then you'll need to look at the legality and illegality of that, because not all uses of marijuana are legal and not all uses of marijuana are illegal. That's something I would recommend that you would do your research on if there's something that you're wanting to partake in while you're here. But you can definitely come here and not have anything to do with that sort of stuff. Like myself, yeah, it's reasonably easy just to say no thanks, and they usually leave you alone after that. So yeah, that's basically my review of Jamaica. I do like the place. I would really like to come back here again. I really like this parish. It's, you know, places like Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, Negril, even Kingston are probably not really my places. We're going to go to Kingston though, and we will be, you know, we'll be checking out. I wanted to go to Bob Marley's museum, and the area that we're staying in Kingston is not too bad. It's reasonably alright area. Oh, I did want to mention that there is an element of unsafety, as there is with anywhere in the world anyway. I mean, you could walk outside your door in your house and you could die, or you could even die within your own house. Not that I'm trying to frighten you here. But there is an element definitely of it's mostly things like, if you're a traveller, it's the threat of theft. And so especially in places like Kingston and Montego Bay, maybe even some of the other more touristy areas as well. So you have to be just sort of careful with your belongings and your whereabouts. And there might even be some areas that you might not want to be walking alone on the street at night, where we feel really safe. We don't mind walking around in the dark together, you know, to go down and get some food or anything like that. It's really safe. If you're wanting like a sort of rural, laid back Jamaica, and you want to go to like a lot of beaches and waterfalls and get out into nature, then I would recommend definitely staying in Portland Parish. There's a couple of other parishes nearby that are not too bad as well. I mean, you could stay in other parishes as well, and maybe just stay in the smaller populated areas if that's your kind of thing. You know, the shopping is not really my sort of thing, so I'm not like into that sort of stuff and wouldn't need to be near a mall, or so that, you know, I'm just into different things, as some of you probably are as well. So I think that's long enough. It's definitely over 15 minutes. And I'll see you in the next video. I hope you've done something that makes you happy today. See ya.